Hello, hello, hello. How are we doing? Dave Galer, Fulchigadi on Show 3 Drams. Hello and welcome to another episode of 3 Drams. Mr. John O'Donovan, the man behind 3 Drams and of course the parent company that is irishmalts.com, the finest place to find your Irish whiskies, poachings and assorted Irish spirits. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very good, Matt. I'm very good. I'm very excited about tonight. We've got 3 great guys joining us for this tasting. How are you feeling?
I'm good. I've pre-poured Dram 1 and I'm excited to see what the glasses hold, because tonight we have 3 really exciting different whiskies with 3 very interesting guests. So I think you've done a great job of setting up this tasting, and I'm hoping everyone is going to enjoy going through it with us. But are you excited? Because I know you'll be dropping in a couple of little bits, but for most part, you get to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, for the most part, I enjoy myself. I'm super excited. I think people probably know by now we got 3 great guys. We have first up Johnny Neill from Sameul Gelston. I can see the guys in the background here waiting to come on. It's going to be very interesting. Relatively new brand. Let's get to taste their limited edition single pot still Pinot Noir finished. We have got Jack O'Shea. You can see Jack there. Will be on second, representing Sailor's Home. We have the 10-year-old blended whiskey, the Hozizon, and then we have the infamous Daithi O'Connell, the human beard. He'll be coming back. He'll be the third up, and we'll be going through the Bill Phil batch 2. So I'm super excited, Matt.
Yeah. We have a lot of people joining, currently 179 just off the bat, and I think that's only on YouTube because I don't see all of the numbers, but that's a huge amount of people. The kits have gone out to a record-breaking number of people. I think we're up to 1,800 kits going across the world. What are the furthest flung places that you're seeing kits go out to these days, John?
We have a fair few guys over in Germany. We don't really ship them very far. Just logistically with the 4-week window, it's difficult, but mostly Germany and Belgium we have is most of our European friends. If anybody is here from outside of Ireland, drop us a comment, tell us where you are. So yeah, Ireland, UK, a little bit challenging getting to the UK, Matt, these days, but we got around it. So we got people in the UK as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, tell us, before we kick off into the whiskies, we do have some fantastic discounts that everyone who purchased the kits will be getting later on. But not only that, we do have our first ever live competition. So why don't you run us through what we'll be looking forward to a little bit later on?
Yeah, more on the discounts later as the show goes on. But for the first time, we're going to give away some good whiskey. So we're going to give away a bottle of each of the featured whiskies tonight. So that's 1 bottle of Sameul Gelston's pot still. That's 1 bottle of Sailor's Home, the Hozizon, and that's 1 bottle of Daithi's Bill Phil batch 2. So that's nearly €200 worth of whiskey. So later on in the show, Matt will let everybody know that we've shared a post on the 3 Drams Facebook page. There's a couple of conditions to enter. You'll need to share the post and tag 3 whiskey friends. We'll select a winner over the weekend and we'll post it on the 3 Drams Facebook page. So probably something we're going to do from now on just to make it a little bit more interesting. So Matt, excited about that?
Absolutely. I'm seeing a lot of people. I'm pulling up a few people who are dropping in from across the world. We've got a hi from London from Lara. We've got some Wicklow. We've got some Cork, Netherlands. Germany. There's Copper Valley. I'm not exactly sure where Copper Valley is, but I'm loving to find out. So
I know where Copper Valley is. It's in Cork.
Oh,
so yeah. How many Corkonians are here? Can all the Cork people come into the comments?
Exactly. Well, so this is quite a fun evening. The one thing we'll say as well, fantastic presentation packs. We will be, as nearly always, starting off with Dram number 1. I was talking to John earlier on, fantastic little sample bottles. If you're not keeping them and reusing them, there's a load of people coming in from Cork. If you're not keeping them and reusing them and you are recycling them like I was this morning, do remember to take off the cap before you put them in the recycling, because they're harder to recycle with the cap on. Always a good tip for whiskeys, but absolutely fantastic packaging from you guys and a fantastic recyclable little kit as well. So I'm loving the sustainability element. But John, I think it's about time to kick you out of the chat and to bring on some people who are going to talk about whiskey instead of you talking about up the lads and up the rebels, huh?
All right.
Exactly. There's a huge amount of people coming in from Cork now, and one in the Paris of the Northeast in Dundalk, apparently. So
Wow.
getting in on the monster.
I can see a Glenmore there. I just got to throw that up. Sorry, it's my hometown. I don't know. Hi, Gordon. Thanks for joining.
All right. So, John, I'm going to pull down this Glenmire. I'm going to kick you out. And we're going to be talking to people far more important than the two of us. And we're going to jump into Dram number 1. So, John, I'm going to kick you off. Good luck. I'll see you a little bit later on.
See you, man.
So, we have Dram number 1. I am delighted to be able to introduce this whiskey. This is Sameul Gelston's single pot still Pinot Noir cask, which is something I've been very interested to try for quite a while. And joining us, we have Mr. Johnny Neill, the founder of the brand. So, Johnny, welcome to the show. Like that, look, poof.
Hey, Matt.
We're in. How are you doing?
How are you doing? Yeah, no, all good. I've got a bit of whiskey on the back wall, bit of gin as well. How are you?
I'm good. I've got a bit of whiskey in the glass, so I'm pretty happy. I have poured Dram number 1. If any of you haven't yet, this is what you've got in your pack. So this is what we're looking at. And do remember that if you're tasting along at home, you do have your tasting cards that came with the pack. So it's handy to try along with us. But sir, Johnny, for everyone who's pouring the whiskey into the glass, first of all, do you have a bottle in front of you so you can show everyone what the brand looks like and perhaps give us a little background into what the brand is? Hold it a little closer to the camera there if you can.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect. That's beautiful. Nice bespoke little embossed bottle there. Nice, that's lovely packaging. And I'm hoping now that the liquid is going to live up to the packaging, huh? So
I'm hoping you like it too.
Exactly.
It's great. No, I'll just give you a little bit of background on the brand itself. So started by a wine and spirits merchant in Belfast called Sameul Gelston. But actually, Sameul died he started in 1830. He died in 1869, and it was bought by my great-great-grandfather, a guy called Harry Neill. And Harry continued the business up to 1891. So we've always been bonders and blenders and independent merchants, really, independent bottlers. The whiskey itself, Gelston's whiskey, became dormant in 1949. So I've still been looking for bottles from the 1920s. I'm still struggling to find them, but we've got advertising posters in pubs all around Ireland. I've got brass trays. I've got jiggers from the 1880s and 1890s. So it's a lovely old independent brand that I brought back to life about 5 years ago now. Okay.
And I suppose what inspired you to bring out a single pot still now that we're sitting in front of us with quite a unique, I suppose, cask maturation? What is single pot still going to be a big part of the portfolio, or what drew you to it?
Yeah, well, single pot still just very special in terms of its makeup. So ours is 50% malted barley, 50% unmalted barley, but also there's a history behind the maturation here. So actually, Harry, the original Harry Neill, went out to Australia in the gold rush in 1851 and set up a provisions merchant there, supplying the miners with what they needed, and did really well. But his younger brother also came out, a guy called Percy. And Percy went on to New Zealand and set up a spirits business in New Zealand too, called Neill & Co. Now, Percy's great-grandson is a man called Sam Neill, who is the actor from Jurassic Park and Dead Calm, and he's got a new one out called Drams. So he's my second cousin. So Harry came back to Ireland and bought Gelston's, and he was selling Gelston's to Australia, his brothers in Australia and his brothers in New Zealand. And so Sam and I hooked up together with this project about 6 years ago. And Sam was a wine connoisseur. He is a wine proprietor. He has a winery called Two Paddocks in Otago in New Zealand. So he makes organic Pinot Noir. And Sam sent me about 13 of his French barriques that he's been using for his Pinot. They've had Pinot in for about 6 years, and then they've come over to West Cork, which is where this whiskey is sourced from. And the whiskey itself spent 18 months in bourbon cask, and then it spent a further 21 months in Sam's Pinot Noir casks. So it's quite a long time actually in those Pinot casks, and you can see that from the colour. It's got that rediness, that burgundy nature to it, a little bit more depth of colour to it.
Well, tell us about the I suppose what those casks did to it, because if I'm holding this up to the nose now, I'm getting a burst of tropical fruits, and anyone who follows my website potstill.com will know I am a fiend for tropical fruits and whiskies, and I'm an easy sell when there's tropical fruits on the nose.
It has. I mean, it's got a malty element to it, and then you've got a little bit of strawberry, and then you've got this nutmeg, a little bit of spice, and then that tropical fruit, and it's a nice combination on the nose there.
And perfect. So, and it's bottled at 40%. Is this going to be a core range whiskey, or is this a limited edition?
We launched this as a limited edition, so we bottled 400 cases of this to start with, but I'd like, over the next few years to bring it into the core range if we can. I've got the harvest is happening in New Zealand at the moment, so I've got some more of Sam's casks coming over as well. And he also makes a Riesling as well, so I'm trying to get some Riesling casks out of him, 1 or 2 if I can, scrabble those together and see where we go with those.
Well, fantastic. So I know people in the comments are already jumping into it straight away, but I'm going to say sláinte it to you, and I'm going to have my first little nose in a sip. So sláinte it.
Sláinte it. So I mean, it's quite big. It's rich. It's got a little bit of sweetness up front, and then you've got some dryness coming through the middle of the palate there. A little bit of tannin, perhaps, and then it's quite more dark fruit in the middle, and that little bit of spice on the finish as well.
Yeah, there's a fantastic pot still spice, but there's a fantastic kind of like that dry tannic quality coming through. Yeah. The little hints of kind of nuttiness with it as well. But that's very interesting. And again, everyone in the comments, do please let us know what you're thinking, what you're tasting, what you're nosing. It's fantastic to be able to start off with a single pot still whiskey. For anyone who doesn't, follow the world of Irish whiskey or the history of Irish whiskey, the kind of quintessential style of the historic Irish whiskey markets, and obviously becoming very popular today. The nose got
a little bit of jamminess on the finish as well there, and a slight sweetness. So it's quite smooth on the finish, but you've got that dryness in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was the choice of the Pinot Noir cask? Why did you choose those specifically over any of the other wines that would have been available?
To be brutally honest, it was an experiment. It was it was a nice collaboration, and it was looking to bring the two parts of the family back together, sort of after 150 years. In two different hemispheres as well. You've got our Irish single pot, and then you've got these wonderful Pinot that's been sitting in near the ski slopes at Queenstown down in New Zealand. So just wanted to bring those two different flavors together and see how it went. And I think it's come out really well.
Absolutely. And I suppose I'm just going to remind people we're on, for anyone who's joining late, we're on Dram number 1. And this is the Gelston's single pot still, partially matured in bourbon casks for 18 months. My apologies. That is correct. Yeah. And 21 in the Pinot Noir cask from New Zealand. So I suppose what does how does this fit into the rest of the Gelston's range? And I suppose what is the trajectory for Gelston's? Where are you heading to have it as part of the world?
Yeah, well, we started with high age statement, so I managed to grab hold of some 1991 casks, which originated at Bushmill. So we've had a 25-year-old out there, we've had a 26-year-old out there. We've got some higher age statements on the way, but we're independent bottlers. We don't have a huge amount of casks, and so I've been trying to grow it from top down, and now we're coming up from the bottom as well. So we've got a new blended whiskey, which we're sourcing from Great Northern. We've got our single pot still and our Pinot pot still as well from West Cork, and then we've got a single malt from West Cork. So we've got a younger core range at the bottom. I've still got some whiskies resting, sort of 8-9-year-olds, sitting there, some in red wine casks, some in a bit of sherry. And then we've got some of this older. So I've got a potentially an 18-year-old that we'll launch this year as well, single malt, which again originates from the north of Ireland. So and that, those whiskies have got that tropical fruit. They're single malts, but with this tropical fruitiness to it, and that's why I think the single pot you and I enjoy so much, is that fruitiness up front.
And for you as an independent bottler, so that means for the people that aren't familiar, you don't have your own distillery, so you're working with existing stocks from other distilleries that you're essentially maturing, finishing, blending yourself. How important is, our maturation experiments like this Pinot Noir for the Gelston's brand? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it's fundamental, but also we don't want to be adding too many different facets to the portfolio. We need to focus on our core range of 4, really. So if we can find something that works really well and that we can bring into the core range, then we will. But we are also looking for a distillery site at the moment. So I would hope within the next 12 months we have a distilling site and we'll be up and running and making Gelston's Irish whiskey again from scratch.
And would you be looking up the north, or have you other directions in mind? Or
ask me again in 6 months. Brexit's just happened. It's a Belfast brand originally, but let's see how we go. I couldn't tell you.
Well, that's very fair. I see the guys from 3 Drams are asking in the background who loves single pot still. So it'd be interesting to see if the comments come through. There are a ton of comments coming through with people's tasting notes and their impressions of this whiskey. A lot of people loving the kind of juxtaposition of the sweet and the dry together, which is coming through quite nicely. Especially the kind of the dry tannic quality of the single pot still in itself as a distillate before it even touched the cask as well is certainly delicious. And I believe you said it is sourced from West Cork distillers. Before
this is West Cork. Yeah, absolutely. So relationship with John, and we source just our pot still from here. Yeah.
Well, first of all, being in the market of trading and dealing in casks, West Cork pot still is hen's teeth, but also absolutely delicious. So what a great canvas to start working on as an independent bottler.
Exactly, and we have that in the range as well. So that we've been supplying our own casks, but what is produced off the still is absolutely delicious. So we're starting from a great base, and it means that we can experiment more. And I'd love to do some more white wine finishes as well.
Absolutely. And is Riesling your next up, or is that just
if I can get the casks over quickly? I mean, it takes a little bit of time on the boat to get from New Zealand, and also the heat down in as it crosses the ocean is a little worry. But the Pinot's got here okay last time, so I'll keep my fingers crossed for those Rieslings to turn up in good order.
And when you're looking at the wine casks coming from the wineries down in New Zealand, do you have to look at a lot of the differences in terms of sulfites in the wine or bacteria when you're, like you said, the heat crossing the equator? So obviously there's a lot of logistical issues going for that distance with different casks that I presume you have to rely on your second cousin.
Exactly. We're there. Yeah. So we get the casks as they've come out of the winery. They've been used for 6 years, so they've had a lot of Pinot in them. We only had 13 French barriques, this time around. We'd like to get some more, and he's offering us more this time. So I think as we develop, we'll figure out which casks work and which casks don't. Obviously we monitor each cask along the maturation journey. So this is only 6 casks that were used in this. So they're barriques, so it's 225-litre casks. But we get what we're given, to be honest, at the moment, and then we'll see how the spirit performs in the cask.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can tell you, I actually have never had a whiskey that was not in one cask for the full 3 years. So it's a very interesting twist on what I personally wouldn't even thought about doing in cask maturation. So absolutely fantastic. There's a couple of people asking about where they can get it and what the prices are. Of course, you can get it on irishmalts.com. I believe it's €45 a bottle currently. At the end of this evening, if you are a 3 Drams member, you will receive an email with promotions on all of tonight's whiskies. In particular, for tonight, the whole range of Gelston's whiskies are 10% off with that discount code. So keep an eye on your email inbox, and of course, head straight to Irish Malts. But I suppose for now, Johnny, I think I'm going to have to say a huge thank you. This is delicious. For anyone who still has some whiskey in the glass, do try to keep it and maybe explore between the glasses you go along. Before we cheers and say goodbye, I do want to know if people want to find out more information about you. Do you have a website or social media pages?
There's a SameulGelston's.com website, as Sameul Gelston's Instagram and Facebook. So,
well, absolutely fantastic. Johnny, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you being here and introducing us to this fantastic Pinot Noir and Bourbon Cask single pot still. So thank you.
Matt, thanks very much for having me. It's been a great night. Looking forward to the other whiskies too.
Perfect. And of course, to all of our guests, do feel free to hang out in the background. No one but us can see you. And I know that you'll enjoy hearing and learning about the other whiskies as well if you feel it. So perfect. Thank you so much, Johnny. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
All right. So I am delighted that I am now going to be joined by Mr. Jack O'Shea, speaking to us about Sailor's Home, the Hozizon 10-year-old whiskey, which comes in at a lovely 43% ABV. Now, this is whiskey number 2 in your kits. But before we get into all of that and pouring the next dram of the evening, Mr. Jack O'Shea, how are you doing? Hello, sir.
Hi, good to meet you.
Where in the country are we catching you, sir?
Sorry,
where are you joining us from? Or whereabouts in the area?
Dublin.
Oh, very good.
I'm a Kerry man, but as most Kerry men had to do, they had to leave and get a job. So I had to get up to Dublin and get a job. So that happened to me as well. So my heart is in Kerry, but the rest of me is here.
Well, that's very fair. We're not too far away from each other then. I'm on the north side of Dublin, so we'll be.
Yeah, I'm in Clontarf.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, I'm not too far away from then.
Road. Yeah.
Oh, very good. So we are on dram number 2 here, which is the lovely Sailor's Home Hozizon. Jack, I suppose for the people at home that don't know the brand and don't know this whiskey, while I invite everyone to pour the whiskey into their glass, can you tell us a little bit about the brand and I suppose your involvement with the brand?
Yeah, well, I've been involved in the drinks industry since 1979, I think. And you had Noel Sweeney on, I think, last week. Noel and I soldiered together in Chemical Jones years ago. So I've been messing around with all kinds of drinks. And then I joined Alltech a number of years ago, and I worked on the big alcohol plants in the States. And then Pierce said he wants to make Irish whiskey, so he sent me over a few stills, and I put them into Carlo Brewing. So I made some whiskey there. Usually, I've retired about 4 or 5 years ago, but I often get approached by people who want to get into the business. And the usual thing is, we want to set up a distillery. And my kind of standard response is, well, have you 10 or 12 million? And they said, no, but maybe I have 1 or 2. Well, I said, forget it, because, if people think you get a site and you get a distillery, but the actual costs of running a distillery are horrendous. You can think every week you have to come up with raw material bills, energy bills, wage bills, and all the other bits and pieces. So about he approached me, and he had completed. He had already done all his homework, and he said, "I'm not interested in the distillery, Jack. I'm interested in getting into the whiskey business." And I said, "Bang on, that's what I like to hear." So what I usually tell people, I said, "Get out there, buy your whiskey, buy it from West Cork or buy it from Great Northern, and put it in bottles and sell it and see how you can go." So Keane's background, and he wanted to develop Sailor's Home. So when you think of sailors, you think of rum. So this was something that we said, okay, well, I think it'll tie in well with your marketing if we go for a rum finish. So we went up to Great Northern, and I worked with Keane there for a number of times. I don't know how many hundred samples we went through. and we came up with 3 products, and this is what we call the third one, the Hozizon, and this is a blend of I think it's just check my figures to make sure the old Alzheimer's is kicking in here. It's it's 11-year-old grain and a 12-year-old malt, and what we did then is we married them and vatted it for 6 months in a Barbados rum cask. And the reason we took the Barbados rum is, if you look at Jamaican rums are mainly pot still. The Barbados rums have a lot of column still on them, so they're a wee bit refined. And when you're dealing with a very mature spirit like this, there's always a danger that the wood will overcome it. So we just wanted to, round it off. Whereas if you look at the Journey, which was a relatively new spirit, we used a Jamaican rum, a heavy Jamaican rum cask, which makes quite a difference. But I think if you want to take a whiff of this and see what you think.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's a beautiful spirit. It's turned out very, very well. We're very, very pleased with it. And it's 43% because we wanted to avoid chill filtering. And if you get on to 40%, there's a danger that the whiskey can throw a haze. But if you leave it up at 43, it avoids throwing a haze, and you can also avoid chill filtering, because I think chill filter removes a lot of the nice flavors and proteins.
So I invite everyone else who's watching at home to do exactly what we're doing.
You should get a... Sorry?
That's all right. I was just inviting everyone at home to have a little nose of their glasses with us. And if you fancy, we'll have a little sip, Jack, and taste the palate.
Yeah. Like, just on the nose, you get the nice sweetness, get some apple, caramel, tiny bit of wood there in the background. So if you want to have a quick taste of it, without any water, at 43%, it's still a very, very luscious drink. And I think the rum cask has really rounded it off very nicely. And that the effect comes through. And this is a thing about it, is a nice mature spirit. You can't speed up maturation, And well, there are a few ways which I could talk about, but I don't think the technical file would agree with them. But it's to the whiskey has had all those years to develop, to mature, to draw all those compounds out of the wood, and then, as I said, we just finished it off. Took off the rough edges with a nice kind of not too strong rum cask.
I tell you, Jack, there's comments coming in hand over fist at the moment. People loving this whiskey. See, we were seeing rum, orange, caramel, big rum, spice, sugar, absolutely delicious. Some people are saying they could taste the trip across the Atlantic. I presume that's kind of a salted caramel note they're getting in there as well. They're saying a sweet banana on the nose. There's a range of very positive flavor profiles coming through here. There's one question though that says, was it a challenge getting or working with rum casks?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's very hard to get good rum casks and to get good old rum casks, because it's, I don't know if you've ever purchased casks. I was purchasing. I got a sherry supplier in Perez, and I got some really nice sherry casks. I got 2 or 3 very good deliveries, and I recommended this guy to somebody else. He got 1 or 2 good deliveries, and then he got a rubbish delivery. And cask purchase is there's so many casks out there that are rubbish, and there's so many people who want to unload them, that you've got to be so careful. And we were very lucky. We were working with Great Northern, and because John Teeling has such wonderful contacts, and we were able to piggyback on that and get. But you have to be so careful with sherry casks, and then you have to be so careful with rum casks. Like, if you look at Irish distillers own all their sherry casks, and they actually make them, give them to the sherry guys. The sherry guys use them for a while and then they take them back, because they said it's the only way that you got to control casks.
Yeah.
It's and then when you get to rum, it's even tougher.
And do you find that, I know a lot in the rum industry, they'll use a lot of ex-bourbon barrels. So they tend to be older coming to us than the bourbons. Would you find more duds in the rums than you would sherries, or would be kind of on par, trying to make sure you get the right barrels?
My personal experience is I've had more duds in the rum. Far more duds. And as well as that, there's a lot of distilleries, when they're, they get rid of the casks. The bourbon casks and the bourbon industry, that works like that is kind of it's set up for years now, and those bourbon casks are discharged on containers and they come to Scotland or Ireland. So it's seamless. And once you set it up, it works very well. But when you go looking for rum, you're looking at various suppliers, and then the suppliers might give you some good ones and some bad ones. So you actually have to take the delivery and check everyone individually, make sure that they're okay. I'm glad that people are coming in with those tasting notes. I hate to give out tasting notes, because if I said sweaty armpits, everybody would start looking for sweaty armpits, So, tasting whiskey is such an individual experience. You got to stick the old snaz in there and take a good deep breath, because your sensors are way up here, so you got to get those molecules up to them. And then when you're tasting it, put it in your mouth and give it a good swirl around. So all those receptors pick up all those nice, sweet apple, honey flavors, the whole shebang. And I'm glad people like it, because it's taken a while to get this far.
Absolutely. How long did the planning process of the brand take from first approaching, Great Northern Distillery, choosing the blends, choosing the whiskies, and then finishing and then going to bottling?
It takes about a year and a half. And that's after you have done all your kind of marketing surveys and decided on what pat to suit. So once you decide on the pat, then you got to see what's available, because there isn't an awful lot of mature spirit available at present. And we were lucky enough to get some very nice mature spirit.
I know, as you say, like, there's not a lot of very mature spirit. I actually received an email today of a Belgian man looking to purchase a 15-year-old single malt for under, what was he looking for? Under €10 an LPA or something like that, for ridiculous money, for ridiculously cheap money. And I had to break him. He was looking for Scotch prices. And for people out there that don't know, and I suppose don't deal in spirit, the Irish industry doesn't even nearly have 1/10 of the supply of the Scotch industry, and the prices definitely reflect that. It's definitely a high demand, low supply kind of situation. But I must say, this is absolutely fantastic whiskey. And particularly the nose as well. It's so bright and lively on the nose. I
was on another call earlier on with some other whiskies, and looking at the best of the bunch that I have gone through, and then I take up this one. It's so far ahead, Once your nose gets anywhere near the glass, it gets that lovely, with all those lovely aromas.
Absolutely, and it's definitely, I think, a favorite. A lot of people in the comments here. There's literally it just keeps coming. People in the comments are pairing it with dark chocolate. Someone is pairing it with walnuts currently. So it's fantastic. There's a question in here that's different. And it says, this isn't particularly a question to you. It's kind of a question to the ether, or to the group. But it said, is it ever okay to heat whiskey to drink like you would do with brandy, or do people not do that? Have you ever, apart from, I suppose, a hot whiskey, have you ever, I suppose, experienced people heating whiskey, or I suppose the palm of the hand about as much as you've seen?
That's a very good question. I think you can't drink whiskey cold, and I never like to put ice in a whiskey. Room temperature. And I remember being in a bar in Scotland one time, and we were having some very pleasant drams, and they were saying that they have to leave the water on the bar all day, because if it's not at room temperature, the locals are quite upset. So I wouldn't go for heating it, but definitely room temperature, and definitely not ice, unless you're in Houston on a hot summer's day and you're coming home from work and you want something to cool you down. Jack Daniels with a few ice cubes is nice.
Absolutely. I suppose one question has come through here is that you don't happen to have a bottle on hand by any chance, do you, just to show what the bottle looks like?
There we go.
And you have that little almost a letterbox window in the middle of that S there, I can see as well. And there's a lot of thought gone into that design of that bottle.
Yeah, definitely. I'll just read it out to you. Welcome searchers and seekers, explorers and adventurers. And it's based, all this is based around Sailor's Home in Limerick. And this was a home for kind of homeless sailors. And this is one of the windows from it. And a lot of it has, I said that the Sailor's Home has had a lot of influence on how the bottle was crafted and how the label was crafted.
Okay. I'm loving the backstory to that. And I said, yeah, again, there you go. Absolutely fantastic. And I presume the other whiskies in the range do follow that same design as well, just with slight alteration.
Yeah, this is the journey. This is an interesting one as well. It's a rum finish, but it's as I said, a younger whiskey, and it's a very.
Slightly? There you go. Yeah, sorry, just wanted to see the bottom label. Fantastic looking. And sorry, you were saying about the rum finish?
It's got a rum finish, but it's a 4-year-old, and it started life as a grain in a U-make barrel, which is amazing. But because when you take a U-make barrel, it's so active, and then you put a grain whiskey into it, and a grain whiskey is light, and very, very quickly you get most unusual flavors. So that was one of the ingredients in that. And the other one, then the one we have in the middle, this one here, that was the Journey, the first one, and this one is the Haven, and this is the pot still.
Very good.
And then it's got some oats in the mash bill of this, which is gives it a nice twist.
Very nice. So if people wanted to find your whiskies online, obviously irishmalts.com will have them there. I believe the Hozizon is €65 a bottle. Excuse me. They do have the bundle of the Sailor's Home where you can get all 3 bottles with a €20 discount if you buy it through the bundle. But also, if you check out your emails later on, you'll be seeing a 10% discount code for the Hozizon if you do want to pick yourself up a bottle. But if people wanted to find out more information from a website, perhaps, Jack, where should people be looking?
Well, yeah, there's this Sailor's Home irishwhiskey.com.
Well, that's the place to be looking.
Yeah, Sailor's Home irishwhiskey.com. Well, Sailors plural, and it's Irish Whiskey with the E.com.
Perfect. I love it. Well, Jack, I very much appreciated you taking the time to join us and walk us through this fantastic whiskey. And as I said to everyone else who's there, if you have any of the previous whiskey in your glass and a little bit left like I do here, do feel free to hang on to it just so you can compare back through all 3 once we try some peated whiskey a little bit later on. But Jack, thank you so much for introducing Sailor's Home, the Hozizon 10-year-old blend. The rum cask is fantastic. As I said, people have just come through hand over fist. And do feel free to enjoy the rest of the show in the backstage area, as it will. Again, thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate it. And I know that people have.
It's been a pleasure. And great to meet you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, bye-bye.
We are moving on to our third and final whiskey of this evening. Now, people, you have been coming in with comments all through this evening, and we are loving them. So make sure to keep them coming in. Now, the one thing I do want to remind everyone is, if you are a Facebook user, the 3 Drams Facebook page has a competition that is going live very soon. Do fire over there either now or just after the show. Check out the competition, because you'll be able to enter to win one of each of these bottles that we're tasting tonight, which is a prize of over €200. Make sure to check it out. Maybe you have the facility to do it right now without leaving this page, go do it. But if you can't, check it out after the show, because right now there's a man you do not want to miss. I am delighted to be joined by the founder of W.D. O'Connell Whiskey Merchants, Mr. Daithi O'Connell, to introduce the Bill Fill Batch 2. So, Daithi, welcome. How are you?
Evening, Matt. How are you?
Not too bad at all. Now, I have had you on my show on Pot Stilled live a couple of times on Pot Stilled Radio, and every time I talk to you, you're in a different part of the world. So, sir, where are you joining us tonight?
I'm in County Waterford, down in the Copper Coast at home, up in my office here.
Very good. Well, I am delighted you're joining us. This is Dram number 3. It is the final Dram of the evening. For everyone who is watching along at home with their little kits, feel free to pour it now. Let it sit, open up in your glass. This is W.D. O'Connell's Bill Fill Batch number 2. But Daithi, for people at home that don't know you and don't know W.D. O'Connell Whiskey Merchants, or the Bill Fill, why don't you give us a quick rundown, and then let's get into some whiskey.
Yeah, so I'm very much a newbie to the whiskey world. Launched O'Connell Whiskey Merchants in November 2019 at Whiskey Live. I guess a sobering thought there is that Jack started working in whiskey the same year I was born. So just to put it into perspective. And I'm an independent bottler, so I don't have any plans to build a distillery. And we source new make spirit, mature whiskies from multiple distilleries around Ireland and further afield actually as well. And then we apply our own techniques or finishes, or as we find them, we might find them perfectly ready, fine to bottle as well. So it just depends on the situation, and bring them to market under the W.D. O'Connell Whiskey Merchants brand. And
I suppose, well, I have a number of questions, but one, you don't want to open a distillery, but why not? Did you ever want to, or you're just... Yeah, did you call Jack O'Shea and he says you don't have 12 million, don't open a distillery?
It's not wrong with the numbers. I was looking at opening one many years ago down in County Kerry, actually, in the Kingdom, and with quite a lot of legwork done on it and a lot of money spent on it, but it was going to be about a 15 million build, and then after about 5 years it probably would have needed another 10 million. So it was just a case of it just didn't make sense. So
and I'm presuming you didn't just have a cool 25 mil hanging out in the background that you're just going
to... Does it look like it? I'm in an attic office in my house. So,
it'll be a 25 million attic office. I don't know.
No.
So where does the name W.D. O'Connell come from, and where does the Bill Fill name come from?
Yeah, so it's Misha William David O'Connell originally, I suppose. So that's where W.D. came from. And I guess I wanted to trademark the O'Connell name for whiskey, and it was already trademarked by Beam Suntory, thanks to Dr. Teeling, I think it would have originally done it. So I looked for a workaround and decided to go with WD.
I mean, it's definitely a memorable name.
Well, yeah, and it worked anyway, so that's the main thing. So I get to use O'Connell whiskey now as a result. But Bill Phil name then is part of our family name. So my dad's side of the family originally are from West Limerick, a small place called Mount Collins, which is on the Cork, Kerry and Limerick border, right on it. And there were so many O'Connells around the area back in the day. My great-great-grandfather was called William Phillip, so we were nicknamed the Bill Phils, and they were blacksmiths and merchant storekeepers in the middle of the village there in Mount Collins. So to this day, we're still known as the Bill Phils. I'm a Bill Phil. My kids are now Bill Phils. So you know, they were quite famous for my grandfather, Jackie Bill Phil, and his dad were quite famous for cutting or for forging a tool called the Bill Phil Schlon. And the Schlon is for cutting turf or peat for people who are not from Ireland, I suppose. And it just seemed like a natural name then for this peated single malt that we found up in Great Northern.
Very good. And I suppose I'm loving your story of the fact that you're all Bill Phils. It's a very Irish thing to do. I know. We've had this conversation before, but I work with a lot of people from Kerry and Dingle, and a friend called Connie Malloch, and I always wondered why he was called Connie Malloch. I thought it was a very strange Irish name. His name was Niall O'Connor, but sure in Dingle everyone's an O'Connor. So they became the Mallochs, and then somehow it morphed into Connie Malloch. And I work with a lad very confusingly that his name is Cullum, but his family again had the common surname, so they were called the Matties. So he and all of his family are called Matty. And my name being Matt makes for awful confusion in there because we all know him as Cullum. So half the people come in looking for Matt, half the people come in looking for Matty. So a nice Irish trait of having the secondary names.
Every village in Ireland has them, I think, in town, yeah.
Exactly. So you mentioned that this Bill Phil Batch 2 is a peated whiskey from Great Northern Distillery. Is I suppose 100% of the single malt in this peated is partially peated with some unpeated malt, or how is it made up?
No, it's 100% peated malt. The peated malt is brought over from Scotland because there's at the levels that Great Northern would want it from, which are not huge amounts actually, are not available in Ireland really for them. So it starts off life around 55 parts per million. That's phenolics. It's probably a bit heavy, but that's a smokiness, I suppose, in the peated malt. And by the time the triple distillation, and what makes this unique is that this particular distillate was the first triple distilled peated malt in Ireland in about a century, we think, maybe even more. So it's quite rare and unusual. But I think the triple distillation, the third distillation on it, has really brought out that sweet characteristic and the less aggressive smoke that would be associated with some of the Islays and Highlands that we'd be familiar with in Scotland. So it's quite different on the nose, I guess. It has a nice Chardonnay color. It's quite light. It's young. This is an average of 4. This is 2 different year distillates put together from 2 casks. We got 504 bottles from it. So a very small batch. I select the cask myself then from the cask that we have in storage. And I'm trying to keep, this is the 4th bottling of Bill Phil. We did 2 single casks and 2 batches. We're trying to keep that DNA there, I guess. So on the nose, like, it's quite smoky. There's initially, but if you just give it a while, you get past that and you get these citrus notes, poached pears, orchard fruits, bit of cereal in there. For me anyway. And then I'm like Jack, I don't want to tell people what they're going to experience. Everybody has their own experience. Everyone has their own background. So I think just let's have a taste and sláinte.
And if you're not that here, Jack, John's written it down for you here as well for sheet notes. So sláinte that.
There's a real nice mouthfeel on that. And that's, if you leave it in there, it'll coat your mouth nicely. There's a bit of spice, white pepper. It's 47.5%, so it's pretty strong. And I tried percentage based on the ABV, and where I think the whiskey is at its best for drinking. Other people will differ from that, and some people would say, below 40 is where it should be at. But the whiskeys I bring out are brought out because this is how I like them, and I just hope people then will appreciate them the same way I do. But feel free again to add water, put it in a highball, do whatever you want with it. It's once you have it.
Well, I see some great comments coming in here. A lot of people loving the whiskey and the citrus and the peat coming through. But one of some of the comments I'm particularly clued into here now is a few people said that there's not a peated whiskey that they like, but they're enjoying this. What would you say to people who, I suppose, peated whiskey? In the Irish category, there aren't too many examples. You're definitely, holding the flag of the independent bottlers for the peated. What would you say to those people that are new or perhaps apprehensive of the peat category for whiskeys?
Yeah, sure. Look, it's like any whiskey. Not every whiskey is for everybody. There's no such thing as a bad whiskey. It's just there's better ones, I suppose, and for each person that applies to them. And peat, it mightn't be for you. And I'd always say try a few different varieties. You might, if you don't like the bill fill, try something else, or whatever, and you might find one that you do like. Your palate needs to, your palate's always educating itself. And if you spend some time trying different foods, and if you spend some time eating less salty, less processed foods and less sweet foods, you'll actually start to like look at how coffee has changed in Ireland. I suppose that's a good one to probably for most people. Nescafe and Maxwell House was what was there 15 years ago, and now you wouldn't be caught dead having one. People like that bitterness that's coming through, so I just keep giving it a try, and someday you might find you like it. I guess it's like stout drinkers. I remember my first pint of Guinness. I don't think I liked it. Now I'd like to have one here in my house if I could, a keg of it.
Definitely in lockdown, everyone would love a keg of Guinness with the tap on top.
Yeah. So look, and that's how it is, and I think peated whiskey may or may not be for you. Sherry whiskey may or not be for you. It just depends, and there is no right or wrong on it.
So Daithi, I have a question for you, and I ask you this every time the two of us encounter each other on a live stream, and you always roll your eyes when I ask you this. But you're becoming you're an independent bottler, but you're so well known now for the bill fill. Will it remain a core part of the range with the other expressions breathing, in that filling the space around it, being the core expression, or is it fleeting in the O'Connell Whiskey Merchants profile to be filled with lovely new expressions of wonderful other things?
No, well, I guess there's two answers to that. Well, bill fill is 100% staying as a core product. It will be released as small batches all the time, so that's how it will be, but it will be there. I think from the first time we spoke, Matt, I went off and bought as much as this stock as I could at the time, and then I'm thinking pretty good, well set up now for future years with it, so we'll keep delivering, and every year it's about to hit South Africa and the US as well. Hopefully be in Germany in a couple of months too, and maybe France. So we're looking to expand it out in Asia, and we're going to add to that core range now as well. We've something else coming out there in mid-March, around the same price point, around the same ABV, but a whole new style of whiskey. For the people who maybe don't like peated whiskies, because we're missing out on a lot of people at the moment. So look at all the reaction there to the two previous whiskies, and there's no doubt to the quality of those. They're coming from two sterling operations there in West Cork and in Great Northern, if there's Great Northern in there as well, I believe. So I guess the future is bright in that side of things, and we want to get in that action. So hopefully we're going to bring in something a little different though, and again, it's not a blend. So it'll be something that's a little more rare in the market, but at a decent price point, I think.
Very, very fair. And I believe, the bill fill batch 2 is all bourbon cask matured. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the whole bill fill range to date is all bourbon cask, and it's all the same. They're all casks from the same distillery in the US that we use every time specifically. And this was from a 16 and 17 distillate, so something that was almost 5 and just about 4, I think, at the time, or both. Sorry, just gone 5 and just gone 4. So it was just two casks that we vatted together. And again, I had to spend some time picking those casks. And one of the casks that went into it from the 17 was so good, I actually was going to hold it back for a single cask release. But when I put the two together, I felt that you could see a nice progression here with it. And that's what we wanted to do, and find a sweet spot for the bill fill. At some point, I can't see it being a very old whiskey. That's not to say there won't be older bottlings in the future, age statement, but I think young peat is nice and drinkable, and it's more fun and more interesting, I think, than older peat stuff.
Well, I was just going to say, do you think there are other cask types that might work well with the peat profile that you have with the bill fill, or peat type?
Yeah.
Or experiment with?
Cask, but just like gone from bourbon into sherry. I know I'm not going to comment on anything that maybe might get me in trouble with other people who might have done it, but that's how our approach with it is always keep it into bourbon for starters, and then we can differentiate a little bit after that, but we won't be going full sherry or anything like that on the peated stuff on the bill fill.
Okay. And there's a question here that's come in from Brendan Byrne. He's saying he wants to ask a general question. He says, when makers talk about launching into territories, they presume they're stocked in high-end whiskey shops rather than like everywhere. When you mean launching into territory, are you talking about signing with a new importer or distributor, or are you looking direct to multiple retailers, or how does it work for you, I suppose?
Any way you can get it. There's a mix of all of it. We're looking at someone to take on a country or potentially a continent, or looking at a single shop. Just depends on who you're speaking to, and the market you're going into and how big it is. So high-end shops generally, we're probably in the higher price point, €65 plus. Some of the bottlings we've had have been 140 for 50 CL bottles, 165 for 70 CL 17-year-old, and they'll continue to come as well. So we have more of those coming in the older age statement as well. So that's good as well.
Fair enough. And I suppose if people are keeping an eye out for the next W.D. O'Connell releases, and I suppose where should they be looking? And then also what is available right now? Because there was only 600 bottles released of this batch. Is that correct?
Actually, 504 only. I on the press. I'll get a press release right someday, Matt. Don't worry. So only 504. We really miscalculated. We had big losses as well, I think. So at the bottling line. So there's that batch 2. I think there's some 12-year-olds. This is the 12-year-old that we brought. This is from Bushmills, all sherry cask. This is full sherry, not peated, obviously. This is the bill fill batch 2. So there, it's kind of hard. Sorry there.
It's all right.
Here. And there might be some PX18 in a few stores, but not much, which is pretty delicious. I actually have to buy a bottle today because I have some bottles there, but they're bottles 1 and 2. They're for my kids, so I'm not allowed to open them. So I need to get another bottle, so I have to buy one today of the PX18. There's a handful of bottles left. You might find the odd. We don't just do online, so we try and spread it around. We have a good spread of shops around Ireland, so some of your local stores might have them, have something on the shelf still, but majority of stuff is gone.
And I mean, you are a man of your word in that sense. I know that you were actually calling into a few of the local off licenses around my area recently. I got some phone calls if I wanted to buy some W.D. O'Connell's whiskeys. A few of the lads have me on the phone just to make sure new whiskeys come in. They gave me a call and they've told me that there was a few of your bottles in. So I was glad to see you're coming through. I suppose there's one person here saying, it's actually Dave Cummins saying he bought a bottle of your 18PX the other day from Irish Malts to give to a friend, and he's loving it. So keep up with the good work. Paul Gaffney wants to know, what do you mean by big losses of bottling, Daithi? What does that mean? You mentioned for the bill fill.
The bottling line, like we use a bottling line that would be, it's not ours. We outsource everything at the moment. So the line would be not set up for doing small runs. They'd probably do, you know more about this, Matt, than I would. They'd probably have the same losses if they were running off 10,000 bottles than if they're running off 500 bottles. So
yeah, so filling the tanks and the lines from the tanks and the pumps and the process and everything to get to the filling heads and into the bottles. There's probably at the end there's not only drain offs but things in lines and in pumps and stuff.
Yeah, and to be fair, the guys who look after it first, they do their best to really minimize it. So obviously I have small amounts, so I'm looking for every bottle every time, and I'm always like, "You sure there's no more there?"
Exactly.
They squeeze out of it here for myself for samples.
Pushing through a bit of water or something at the end, trying to get the spirit out. That's good. I love it. I'm loving some of the comments coming through here. And then Aidan O'Connell saying he's one of all ears for the collections at home. So that's also great. And a lot of people with very fond memories of you at Whiskey Live. And I know, was that the last Whiskey Live that actually happened? COVID feels like it's been going on for 10 years. But that's fantastic, because you launched very soon before Whiskey Live, if memory serves me. Is that correct?
No, Whiskey Live was the first time anybody saw the brand did anything. I was told I was mad doing it, actually, that I shouldn't be going to Whiskey Live. It's full of whiskey nerds who will tear me apart.
And how did that go?
We went great. I asked Ali Alpine in the center of the room. I said I want to be in the center of the room beside all the big guys, and I was.
I love that. You'd never sold a bottle of whiskey before, and you're demanding your place at Whiskey Live, and he was like, "Yeah, okay, cool, go for it."
Yeah, and in fairness, I don't know whether it was a mistake or not, but he gave it to me, and worked out really well for us. And the bill fill was actually a late addition to that, and I wanted to try, and we were launching the PX17, and I just said, I need something else that's going to get people to come down and say hello to us. And then, we had the stock ball already. So I was like, you know what, let's just go with it and see what happens. And, it was a really, really nice, the bill fill, the original single cask was, fantastic drop of whiskey at 3 years and 5 months or something. And, they didn't last long. It was single cask, 306 bottles, and Whiskey Live went off really, really well for us. We got a huge reaction. Ken Murphy from 69 in Kinsale was working with me, and Chris Hennessy from the Dillon there in Kilkenny. And, without Chris there, actually, no one knew who I was. So Chris was very helpful in that manner of bringing all the people over, all these big influencers that we have, And John Fleming was supposed to do some work, actually, but he just... that guy goes, AWOL. I couldn't rely on him. I knew I couldn't rely on him. I used to work with him before, so.
Very good. Well, no one gets away unscathed anyway. And actually, I do remember I was working at a stall for that Whiskey Live, and Chris Hennessy came and plucked me off the stall and plonked me in front of you for that one. So you're not wrong.
We had a few jars after one the night, so it was good. It was great.
Yeah.
I loved it. I was really looking forward to it this year, to be honest. Really, really enjoyed it. I was knackered after it, but it was just super fun.
It's one of those part of, I suppose, both of our jobs outside of the 3 Drams universe is attending whiskey shows and festivals and conferences and whatever around Europe, around the world. And you're in a room with Scotch people and Indian producers and English whiskeys and whatever. And it's great and you make friends or whatever, but nothing compares to Whiskey Live, which is the entire Irish whiskey community, both producers, critics, enthusiasts, new people to the thing, all in the exact same place. And it's nothing really compares to Dublin Whiskey Live. No, I feel bad for the Scotch people coming.
Yeah, I was told people were going to be a disaster drunk, and people were really engaged, and it was it wasn't as bad as I expected.
Well, perfect. So if people are keeping an eye out they can purchase the Bill Phil Batch 2 on Irish Malts, I believe, for 68. Again, keep an eye out on your emails because the 10% code is going out this evening for the whole WD O'Connell range. But Daithi, if people want to find you online, where do you want to send people?
Yeah, so obviously the website, if you want to catch up on anything we're doing, we've loads of announcements coming this year from next month on. Again, we just had a couple of new things start, new cash share program start in February, and we have loads of stuff happening. So if you want to visit wdoconnell.com, sign up for our newsletter and we'll keep you posted. Not too often, once a month max, I promise. I'm too lazy to do it any more often. And then we're on all the social media channels at O'Connell Whiskey. That's pretty much it. So people new to us would sign up, visit us, sign up, give us a shot and see what they think. You know, there's a lot of really exciting stuff. So I'm really excited for the future.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Daithi. I'm delighted you've introduced everyone to the world of Bill Phil. I hope that people have enjoyed it. The one last question before we go, this just slipped in, just in my sign off. Give us a 10-second synopsis of what your cask share is, because that 2 questions have come in on that, and then I need to sign off because I'm tight on time.
No. So cask share it's a new idea we had. So we're on a distiller, and we own casks of whiskey, and I can't, ones I don't want to bottle anytime soon. So in a bid to kind of alternative crowdfunding, I guess, we decided to sell 1 share equals 1 bottle in the future of a cask strength bottling. And you can go on and, each month we'll put up a new cask. We decided to put 3 up to start, and then we just added 1 from you and Fionn O'Connor's historic mash bill one in Boan for February. And then we'll continue to add 1 a month for the rest of the year, hopefully. And it's going to be some pretty exciting casks coming on there from not just Ireland, but around the world. And it just gives us a bit of cash flow too as well, which access, so it's handy, and it's been working great so far. So hopefully it'll continue that way. It's a really simple model.
And people basically buy in and they get a fantastic, I suppose, bottle or bottles down the line of some very interesting whiskies that you have in storage.
Yeah, so we'll design a cask share members' own label, so it'll be specific for them. And we only sell part of the cask as well, so we keep the rest of it. So it's pretty limited stocks, and it'll be personalized bottles as well. So nice and rare, and something unique for you. Perfect.
And to anyone who's new to 3 Drams or my Pot Still show, I have a lovely collie puppy who's just rolled herself off the couch. So if you heard a thunk in the background, I apologize for that. Well, Daithi, thank you so much for your time and for introducing everyone to the Bill Phil. Make sure, if you still have some whiskeys left, try between all 3, have a little nose, compare and contrast, see what you like. We are not done yet. We do have a final couple of things to go over, but Daithi, I'm going to sign you out. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I'm going to bring back in Mr. John O'Donovan, who is the man that made this happen. How are you doing?
I'm good. Sean O'Donovan on show.
So we've had 3 fantastic whiskeys. We've had the Gelston's single pot still in bourbon and Pinot Noir, which comes in at a lovely €45 with the 10% discount going out in the entire range this evening. We've had the Sailor's Home Horizon 10-year-old blend and the rum cask finish, which is 65, with the bundle for €20 off the whole range and 10% coming off this evening. And then just there, we've had the Bill Phil Batch 2 peated single malt from Daithi WD O'Connell Whiskey Merchants, €68. And the 10% discount is going out tonight. That was a lot to say all at once. We do have the competition still running. How's that going over on Facebook, over on the 3 Drams Facebook for everyone who's still tuning in?
Yeah, first competition that we've done during the live episode. I think we have around 40 shares. So at the moment, you got a 1 in 40 chance if you shared our post of winning near €200 at the RRP for the three whiskies of tonight. I would say, Matt, just one thing to mention, because we get so many messages a week before the tasting, and especially the last couple of days, everybody is writing in and asking, how do I join in, or how do I watch the tasting, or how do I take part? YouTube and Facebook Live on the 3 Drams channels are the primary places we stream the live tasting. If you're watching us on YouTube now, just hit the subscribe button. Never thought I'd ever say that, Matt. Hit the subscribe button, because it will automatically notify you once a month in case you missed out on any of our emails or communications. If you're watching on Facebook Live, just make sure you like our Facebook page. So I would say, get involved. This competition winner will be announced Sunday at 6 p.m. on the 3 Drams Facebook page. Matt, I suppose, how did you enjoy the whiskies?
Absolutely love them. In the comments, let us know what your favorite whiskey of the night was. We've had a fantastic single pot still. Then we had a lovely cask finish 10-year-old blend, and then we're on to a peated single malt. So really, John, you put together an amazing, varied tasting. And do not forget that John is the man behind all of this, 3 Drams, and most importantly, irishmalts.com, where you can get all of these whiskeys shipped straight to your door pretty much anywhere in the world. I say anywhere with an asterisk because I'm sure there's lots of places you're not allowed to legally ship alcohol, and you probably can't ship there. But for anywhere you are legally allowed to ship alcohol, I'm sure John has some way to get it to you. But so do make sure to check out irishmalts.com and let us know in the comments what was your favorite. There were some fantastic whiskeys. John, what did you think of the tasting?
Fantastic. Matt, we try our best to keep it interesting and we try to give this platform to, from the smallest brands to the biggest brands. I have a direct relationship with the 3 guys with these 3 brands, and I love them. I'm just so happy that we can offer this platform up to bring their brand stories to the people in a nice, concise hour. And we try, Matt, to keep, we don't want to put 3 pot stills in there, 3 grain whiskies or 3 single malts. We try to keep, a mix in the lineup. So, next month again, it's 3 different types of whiskey. No, loving these tastings. It's our 4th one. We're hitting about 250 viewers live, up to 3,000 and 4,000 viewers by the end. By the time another week is up. So great to give the airtime to these guys because they're working real hard and they deserve a bit of the limelight.
Exactly. 1,800 kits subscribed for this tasting. I'm hoping next time we're going to be hitting the 2,000 mark. I cannot wait for next month's tasting. They were always fantastic. But John, unless you have anything else to say, keep an eye in the comments because everyone's coming in with their favorites and also they're ranking them as well. And no, there's no clear winner. Everyone.
One sec, Matt. You see, because I can't really pick my favorite on air. Anyway, I can't pick my favorite because I don't want to be biased. But let's see. Sailor's Home, thumbs up. Bill Phil 2 for me. I like the Gelston's pot still. Love the single malt. 231 123. That's the beauty of whiskey. There is nobody saying the same thing, and it's just super.
Well, I am going to put up this little goodbye banner. And to everyone, John, Daithi, Johnny, Jack, good night.
Good night.